everybody, welcome back to part 2 of Bill Mulligan's Unseen Horrors, the greatest movies never made.
Hey, Paul, here's one for you. Okay? Yep. Dr. Phibes. Now, I don't need to tell you guys about Dr. Phibes, but for the audiences I'm usually talking to, it's like, you're like, huh? That looks kind of cool. It's like, kind of cool. Let me tell you about Dr. Phibes. Dr. Phibes is a musician, mad scientist, genius, whose face was horribly disfigured because he was trying to get to his wife who was, dying on an operating table, and he decides to get revenge against the doctors and nurse who treated her. He blames them for her death. He's got this beautiful assistant who might be a robot or angel of death, or we don't know. She's really cool, but she never says a word. She changes her outfits all the time. And he kills, like in the first movie, he kills them all using the plagues of Egypt. So like the locusts, this woman's sleeping and he drizzled this goo on top of her face and the locusts eat that. Then they just keep on going and eat the rest of her. So the curse of locusts. And then this guy is killed by bats because you might remember the curse of bats, unless you read the Bible, in which case you're never going to find it because there ain't no curse of bats. Look, whatever. It's really cool. They made 2 movies with Dr. Phibes. Each one crazier than the other. They're really high-tech nonsense. Just absolute, pure, wonderful nonsense. And they've been trying to make a sequel ever since. Each idea is more insane than the idea that spawned it. There was The Bride of Phibes, where a direct sequel to Dr. Phibes Rises Again, direct sequel to the first movie, and that was replaced by Dr. Phibes Rises Again. And I think that was a good thing. There was Count Yorga versus Phibes. Because they were AIP was trying to get Robert Quarry to be the next Vincent Price because he would work cheaper. Vincent Price and he never got along, probably because Price heard about this, and that didn't work out. So Count Yorga versus a vampire versus Phibes would be an interesting idea. I don't know who we're supposed to root for. Anyway, they cast Robert Quarry in Dr. Phibes Rises Again. So again, this one kind of got absorbed by that. Dr. Phibes versus the Nazis, because it takes place in like the 30s. So there were a few ideas where Phibes was against the Nazis, where basically we just embrace the fact that we're all here to see Dr. Phibes, not the people who are fighting him. So let's just have him fight someone even worse than him. There was Phibes Resurrectus. And the cast, Paul Williams, Orson Welles, Roddy McDowall, David Carradine, and Donald Pleasance. What?
Oh, man.
What?
I would have killed for that.
Absolutely. But the craziest one is not this one, but it should be Dr. Phibes versus the Pink Panther.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, God. No. What?
Yes, it was going to be Inspector Clouseau versus Dr. Phibes and Fu Manchu. I assume Fu Manchu was going to be played by, sorry, I'm drawing
Peter
a blank.
Sellers?
Thank you, Peter Sellers. I assume he wasn't going to play Dr. Phibes, but who knows? Maybe he was. Eventually, they did the Pink Panther Strikes Back, and that was part of the premise is that Clouseau is being hunted by all the great assassins of the world. And you could easily imagine Phibes and Fu Manchu slipping in there, but that didn't happen. Well, here's an even crazier idea. The genius, one of the greatest comic book artists of all time, arguably the greatest comic book artist, Jack Kirby, he pitched this idea, the sinister Dr. Phibes, as a hero, kinda, sorta, where he uses different disguises, because he's good at that, because his real face is really effed up. And he's an Avenger. He goes after bad guys, destroys them with all kinds of gimmicks. Evil versus evil. Kind of a slightly more heroic Doctor Doom. No one knows what was going on here. They just found this, like when they were going through his stuff. Kirby was one of those guys who would just like come up with ideas and write them down and file them away. And was this ever going to be an actual proposal? I don't know. But the mind boggles. Hey, but check out this one. Dr. Phibes in the Holy Lands. Dr. Phibes attempts to construct a concerto to memorize his beloved wife, which rouses the ire of a mad composer, Paul Williams, who sends an army of colorful assassins after him. And they described it as a live-action Roadrunner cartoon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, so Tim Burton, who's a big Dr. Phibes fan, because he's a big Vincent Price fan, he decided to put his fingers in the bowl here. And of course, if he's going to make a Dr. Phibes film, there's only one choice to play Dr. Phibes.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. The question is, what movie would they have made? And I don't know. I mean, Johnny Depp's kind of a crazy guy. And Tim Burton's kind of a little nutty too. But I don't think the two of them together, at their craziest, having smoked a bowl of White Widow from Afghanistan, would have come up with this idea. The Seven Fates of Dr. Phibes. Phibes, his wife, and Volnavia track down and murder the owners of 7 ivory carvings based on Greek mythology. The murders would be a clever combination of myth and mech, like a giant Medusa statue that sprays fast-drying cement. It ends with all 3 of them ascending into Mount Olympus.
Oh.
Yeah. I words fail. This was from actor Paul Clemens, who... And I believe, I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, but I believe he is the guy who actually tried to sue Steven Spielberg for Poltergeist.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And I really don't know if you can copyright the premise of Poltergeist. Like, people buy a house and there's ghosts. Okay. I don't think that's an original one. I'm giving everything with Dr. Phibes automatically 4 ice cream cones. That I love the Dr. Phibes films. People think Saw is great. Saw is not a patch on the ass of Phibes. Hey, speaking of Tim Burton, I liked Mars Attacks. There, I said it. I think it was great. Nobody else seems to have liked it, but I liked Mars Attacks.
I'm raising my hand and waving it furiously. I absolutely love that one.
I remember seeing Mars Attacks in the theater when it came out and loving it. So
yeah, it was great. There was nothing. It was also the first movie I ever saw that did something no one else has ever tried to do. They used CGI to make it look like bad stop motion. That's genius. Yeah. That's genius right there. Usually people are taking bad stop motion and they're tricking it up with CGI to make it smoother. They did the exact opposite. Brilliant. Well, no one got the joke. Absolutely nobody got the joke except for us. And we can't buy enough tickets to make things go. So Mars Attacks didn't do well, and that's a shame because there was going to be a sequel. Oh, it wasn't going to be about Mars. It was going to be Dinosaurs Attack. Dinosaurs Attack, which was basically Mars Attacks with dinosaurs. This super gore fest of a portal opening up and dinosaurs come through, and every card is basically like this one. People are being ravaged and bloodied and gored up and killed in horrible ways by dinosaurs. Every one of these is a masterpiece. A Stegosaurus goes into the police. Oh, look, he hit him with his tail. And
Jesus.
His eye. I know. It's great. It's great. Oh, there's more. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute. A Stegosaurus was a harmless plant eater. Yeah, you know who else is a plant eater? Hungry hippos. That's right. And they kill more people in Africa than just about anything. So shut up. You don't know what a Stegosaurus was like. Nobody was there. I wouldn't trust him. Look, that tail wasn't just there for show. Okay? Come on. Plus, we had some carnivore. Here, look at this one. Homeroom horror. The nice thing about Dinosaurs Attack is no matter what your job is, you can find a card that you can relate to.
do you have my favorite? Oh, I think you do. The next card is my favorite one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Comic-Con Catastrophe. I love this. Oh, look at this.
Now look. The thing, a little bit of trivia about this set that I love.
Yeah.
Notice the banner up there.
Special guest.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it says Art something. Art Spiegelman was the art director on this set, and for those of you who don't know, Art Spiegelman, who created Mouse, the comic about the graphic novel about the Holocaust. So yeah.
And meanwhile, here's Harlan Ellison trying to do some like karate or something against it. I love this guy.
I think these guys are actually the artists.
Yeah.
I think they did put themselves into this one,
right?
Which is what I love about it.
What I love is that this is exactly true. If a dinosaur were to attack a comic book convention, the only thing these people would be concerned about is, oh no, not my first issue of Mud.
Yeah.
No,
my mint condition issue of Fist.
Yeah, it was going to get a 9.8 on the scale. Yeah. So they're all just great, Okay, so there were 7 Frankenstein movies. There were 6 movies with Dracula. There were another 7 with the Wolfman. But what a ripoff! The creature only got 3 movies. Just 3 dinky movies.
Wow.
Yeah, and yet he is the one that everyone is trying to remake. More hearts have been broken in Hollywood trying to remake The Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's hard to know where to even begin. John Landis, desperate for a project before he begins his eternity in hell, put a lot of money into this and actually hired, hired Nigel Key. Was it Nigel? Is the K silent? Nigel Keneal? I don't know. He's the guy who did the Quatermass series. 5 Million Years to Earth, otherwise known as Quatermass in the Pit. I mean, just great stuff. And they hired him. This one would have had two monsters, one gentle, one violent, who end up on the wrong side of the U.S. military. And it was going to be in 3D. Landis insisted on making it in 3D. And have I mentioned that I think most Hollywood is run by imbeciles? Well, if it hasn't come up yet, it's true. Universal did not want to have another 3D film to take attention away from Jaws 3D.
Stop it.
Which they planned on having as their big 3D movie of the summer. These pinheads are so unimaginative. They like, well, I mean, people love 3D movies, but not more than one a year. Like, what? How long did you think Jaws 3D was going to play in the theaters? That it was really going to dominate the summer? That we can't have another one waiting in the wings? Oh my God. James Gunn was going to do Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Wow.
Now, the hard part of talking about this is there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Tons of money. Millions of dollars have been dumped in to Creature from the Black Lagoon movies that haven't been made. So there's all kinds of great pre-production sketches. There's they made some clay figures as proof of concept. They actually made started creating some stuff for it. And I can't vouch for almost any of these. I don't know how many of these are actual things. All of them were attempting to be true to the creature, but put their own mark on it. Which might be a mistake. Sometimes things are pretty good the way they are. And I got to say, Millicent Patrick, who created the creature, did not get credit for it. I think she knocked it out of the park. I think it's perfect the way it is. If you're going to do Creature in the Black Lagoon, why not go with it? There's nothing wrong with that design. And with all the effects that we have now, you could make it a lot more, move, the gills move more. You could trick up and everything and have the eyes maybe a little more lively. So I don't know any reason to do that. But I will say, I do like Rick Baker's design. This was the John Carpenter remake. Yeah. Now, John Carpenter's idea was a little bit strange. It was that the creature is the missing link between man and fish, and that a bunch of creationist scientists are like going down there to find him because they think that this will disprove evolution. And I don't understand that concept, but I'll say that this is not really as nutty as it sounds, because there's a lot of creationists who like go down to Africa looking for that supposed living dinosaur, the Mekele Magembe, that they think lives in the Congo. And they really think that if they find a dinosaur, that's going to disprove evolution. And I want to tell them that doesn't make any sense. It's not going to, we found coelacanths. We found horseshoe crabs. There's sharks look pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, there are creatures that have survived what wiped out most other things. It doesn't say, but I don't want to say that to them, because I want them to go there and do it. I'd like them to find that dinosaur. Mm-hmm. And if they're the only ones willing to go out there, I think they're more likely to end up with dysentery. But hey, be true to your crazy self. Look, I'm still going to disagree with you on evolution, but I'll give you an attaboy on the back if you come back with a dinosaur. Damn.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was Rick Baker's, and it looks pretty good. But I like this one too. I really like this one. But he's kind of cute.
I like him more than the last one. The last one was a little too humanoid for me.
But I don't know. This one the face is so expressive. Yeah.
I feel like everything's cute, but yeah, it is cute.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little too much of the U.S. Godzilla vibes, especially from the third photo.
Yeah.
On this one. Yeah. But he's smaller than Godzilla, so there's that.
Yeah, a lot smaller. And also they decide when they were like getting their plans for, remember the Dark Universe, how that was going to be a thing? Well, this one looks more like, I don't know. It looks more like Ultron from the second Avengers movie, really, with webbed hands. Anyway, Dark Universe, kiss that goodbye, because, oh, Scarlett Johansson was going to be, the female love interest, and hey, that's all right.
Sure.
But, yeah, what happened to all the ideas? That's what happened. The Mummy ruined everything. Anyway, here's a list of all the directors who've had their dreams crushed that they were going to make it. The guy who did Hunger Games, Guillermo del Toro, Peter Jackson, the guy who directed The Crazies, John Carpenter, John Landis, Joe Dante. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think that would have been good. I haven't really liked any of the ideas they came up with. And, I'll go see it. For God's sakes, I'll go see it.
Right.
But I'm just not holding up big hope. Well, if I had to pick now, because Legend of Kong has sort of slipped in my estimation, the one I'm most hurt by, Godzilla 3D in 1983. It was going to have stop motion effects. David Allen, Jim Danforth. Rick Baker was going to do the suit for when they used suitmation. William Stout, who I got to interview at Dragon Con, had a whole bunch of really cool behind-the-scenes stuff. Doug Wildey, who did Johnny Quest, and Dave Stevens from The Rocketeer. They brought lots of great storyboards. This movie, it exists in everything except film. They've got all the behind-the-scenes stuff. It's a little bit of Gorgo and a little bit of Godzilla. They were still kind of messing around with the designs, some closer than others. They built some models, some of which a little shaky, some of which were pretty good. This is another Stout version. I love that version. Very spiky and scary looking. Then there was this one. This is Stan Wilson. I like that. The arms are a little long, but I really like the expression on the face. It looks good. And he was going to fight this monster, the Griffin, which was a cool monster that he starts out as these little flying creatures, kind of like the elementals. They go out and they kill things and absorb their DNA, and then they fly back, and when they come together at the very end, they turn to this giant composite creature that would fight Godzilla to the death. And boy, that looked like a good movie. But every single time they came real close, and then they were like, $20 million on a Godzilla movie. Could it possibly make its money back? It cracks me up when you see just how low the budgets were not that long ago and how they've just skyrocketed out of control. But $20 million for a Godzilla movie sounds like a flippin' bargain. Yes, it would have made its money back. I think we've proven that completely. This one, this breaks my heart. Absolutely breaks my heart. Listen, if you like Godzilla, you probably also like Gamera. This works way better if you can see the animated GIFs, because it's just the most ludicrous thing ever. It started out as a serious movie about a giant turtle, and then it quickly descended into goofydom, kind of like Ultraman with Godzilla. Gamera is the friend of children, and it really got silly. Really, really silly fast. And then they brought him back, and when they brought him back, it suddenly wasn't silly anymore. Like, Gamera had great special effects. More than Godzilla, it started using kind of combination of suitmation and CGI. And a very dark tone. The modern Gamera films do something that a lot of the modern Godzilla movies don't. They actually make you feel bad for the people who are running. Like, they better keep on running because it ain't going to go well. They made 3 of them. They were all good.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
Yeah, they're pretty great. And then they released this trailer. Yeah, so that's really cool. Unfortunately, that's the only thing that came out.
Oh, wow.
They didn't make it. They just whetted our appetites for, the best one ever. And
Broke my heart.
I know, me too. Sony Pictures was going to do a Ghostbusters reboot. That wasn't about the Ghostbusters. It was about the ghosts.
Oh.
And the ghosts and the monsters were the Busters. And they came up with this really cool piece of art. And I got to say, I do find one of these Ghostbusters really attractive. I mean, yeah, she's really cute. I'd love to see people cosplaying as this character. That would just make my day. But they didn't go with that idea, and that's too bad. But thank God they didn't go with this one. Yeah, here's what I think is one of the worst ideas anyone's ever come up with. I totally understand why they did it, how it came up with that, and where they thought it might work. Yes, it's Gotham High. It's Gotham High. What if all the heroes and villains from the Batman mythos were teenagers in high school? It would go something like this.
When was this? Do you know, like, approximately when this was?
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say that this basically just sounds like what Gotham ended up being, which is every single character has some sort of intertwined backstory when they were kids.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But they didn't all go to school together, and so the plot has Bruce Wayne attending high school with Barbara Gordon, his love interest, and his entire rogues gallery. Each character would have represented a social clique. So, like, the Riddler was a nerd, Killer Croc was a bully, Mr. Freeze was the cool kid. God, they suck. And the series was canceled for reasons unknown. I'll tell you why it was canceled. Because nobody wants to watch a show where a little deformed guy is being bullied by a bunch of creeps. I mean, he's got 3 fingers. What the hell were you thinking about here? I do not want to see emo Joker sullenly talking about how he hates his life while Ivy and Harley Quinn are cheerleaders in the background. It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible, terrible idea. But it's not the worst idea. The worst idea was to take The Incredible Mr. Limpet, a story about Don Knotts turning into a fish and then fighting World War II, and reimagining it with Jim Carrey. And I just want to warn the audience, if there are any small impressionable children around, now is the time to tuck them into the covers and chase them away. Because this is what we would have gotten. This nightmare fodder.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's absolute nightmare. The story behind it is that
bullet dodged.
The studio had to pay $25 million for just to get Jim Carrey, because he was hot at the time. And they said, wait a minute, so you're telling me he's only going to be live action for 10 minutes and then he's a cartoon? They were showing Brad Bird, because they were like, if we're paying for Jim Carrey, we're having his face the whole time, no matter what. And Brad Bird said, when they described to me, I go, what did it look like? And he said, if you saw this in the water, you would get out of the water and run screaming and tell everyone the world was ending. It was the most horrifying thing he'd ever seen. They spent $10 million on the animation tests, and then they just quietly folded tent and decided this was not a good idea. And it wasn't. There it is again. Pleasant dreams, everybody. You know, a guy who made dreamy movies was Ken Russell. Ken Russell, he was a guy who was not afraid to be a little out there. Whether you're talking about Savage Messiah or Altered States. I mean, these are like his more approachable films. Tommy, Lair of the White Worm, The Devils, any one of which would be the craziest movie that any artist has ever made, but he made them all. Toward the end of his life, eventually everyone got tired of his shit, and they wouldn't let him make big movies anymore, so he made small movies like A Kitten for Hitler. I just want to say, Ken Russell had balls the size of a Chinese gong, okay? But one movie we did not get was Ken Russell's Dracula. It's kind of famous for being a movie we didn't get, but we should have gotten. Because for whatever his faults, Ken Russell could get a hell of a cast. Okay? It was set in the 1920s. Oliver Reed was Renfield. Take my money. Take my money. Can you imagine being on the set where your director is Ken Russell and your co-star is Oliver Reed? Oh my God. And Peter O'Toole, who could be a difficult guy, but he would be like Peter Cushing compared to the crazy people he's got there. Well, they weren't sure if it was going to be Peter O'Toole, or if you can't get Peter O'Toole, it's an old Hollywood saying, if I can't get Peter O'Toole, give me Mick Fleetwood as Dracula. What? Peter Ustinov as Van Helsing is inspired casting. And he was brilliant enough that he could pretty much ad-lib his own lines. Sarah Miles as Mina. Mia Farrow as Lucy. Okay. Michael York as Harker. James Coburn as Quincy. Quincy never really gets a good deal in all these Dracula things. James Coburn would do that. And what killed it is Frank Langella's Dracula. Because it came out, and it did all right. It didn't do great, but they were like, I think that's all the Dracula we need. And is not realizing that Ken Russell's Dracula would not be like any other Dracula ever made. People have been mourning the loss of this thing. In Vampire's Kiss, there's actually a poster of Ken Russell's Dracula on the wall, coming sooner or later. And the script is available as well. I have not read it, but I will remedy that at some point. And don't feel too bad for Ken. He didn't get to make Dracula, but he did get to make Lair of the White Worm. It is the most insane thing ever. It is just defines insanity. It was basically him making a Hammer film. And wow. Hey, speaking of Hammer. So Hammer started out making science fiction movies. People don't realize that. They made a lot of stuff. Foresight, Men of Sherwood Forest and everything. But science fiction is what really put them on the map. X the Unknown, The Creeping Terror, the Quatermass trilogy. So really, they started out more sci-fi than horror. It was in 58 that basically they did the 1-2 punch of Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein. And that's what set them on the path of really becoming what we know them today as the greatest horror production stuff ever. They did mummies and vampires and reptiles and all kinds of good stuff. They did one werewolf movie, but it was great. Just a lot of really, really cool stuff. But what they were going to do was I Am Legend. And I Am Legend is sort of legendary for people keep trying to make this fantastic book into a movie, and they keep effing it up every time in different ways. We got The Last Man on Earth, The Omega Man, and I Am Legend, which is probably one that hurts the most. And each time they screw it up for different reasons. Last Man on Earth, it was just too damn cheap. The Omega Man, a fun movie, but really barely has anything to do with the book. And I Am Legend, half of the movie is great. And then the monsters show up, and it gets considerably less great. And then they botch the ending. And what's heartbreaking is they did the ending the way it was supposed to be, true to the book, and it was great. And the preview audience didn't like it, so they changed it to an ending that is so bad that they are making a sequel to this movie, and the first 10 minutes of the sequel are basically going to be Will Smith in his Men in Black uniform holding up a neuralizer to your face and telling you to forget the last 10 minutes of the first movie. I think that's how they're going to go. No, they're going to open it up with the 10 minutes that they cut out of the movie. Like, we're sorry. Which means you better go get a hard copy. If you like I Am Legend, go get a hard copy now, because trust me, they are going to digitally change everything. If you've just got it on if you don't have a hard copy, you're never going to see that ending again. And frankly, I'm okay with that. They got Richard Matheson, who wrote I Am Legend, to write the screenplay. And he was good. He wrote The Devil Rides Out, which is a really good Hammer film. Rare chance to see Christopher Lee as a good guy. It was going to be called Night Creatures. It was going to be directed by Val Guest, who did When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth and The Quatermass Experiment. Not the first director I would have picked, but he would have been more than adequate up to the job. And, okay, so remember when the censor got real upset about Daughter of Dracula? Apparently that person was still alive in 1958. Listen to this review. In a word, no! I feel too ill at the moment to add anything to this. It does not seem worthwhile to list the offending scenes, since the whole idea behind the story seems so unsavory. They appealed this. They said, wait. Let's calm down. Look at it again. And the reviewer on the appeal said the script was the product of a diseased mind. They told them, no, we're not making this movie.
Once again, giving they should have just made the movie, and this should have been the quote on the on the poster.
Product of a diseased mind productions gives you boom, Night Creatures. So they couldn't make the movie, and they sold it to the Italians. They sold it to Robert L. Lippert, who then had Matheson rewrite it cheaper. Told him it would be directed by Fritz Lang. Fritz Lang, Metropolis, M. Fritz Lang. But that was a lie. It was actually directed by two people, none of whom you've ever heard of, and one of whom I don't think ever did anything again. And The Last Man on Earth is a fun movie, but knowing what was supposed to be there, it was supposed to be Peter Cushing as Neville. Oh my God. And probably they would have had Christopher Lee playing the vampire who's his best friend. I mean, it would have been so good. That was Hammer at its absolute prime. It would have been a great movie. So yeah, four ice cream cones. Easy. Hey, do you mind if I go on a little tangent here? Oh, good. Thanks.
Finally.
Okay. Yeah.
It's waiting for one of those.
Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. So, yeah. Hammer made like four mummy movies. One of them is really good. It's called The Mummy. One of them is kind of cool. It's called Blood of the Mummy's Tomb. And then there were two in the middle that just weren't good at all. Like the mummies themselves were really sad looking. I don't know what happened. Christopher Lee looked great as the mummy. But Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. All right, so I just want to show you the poster for Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Not this one. We'll get back to this one. The one that they ended up using, this was the one they kind of was doing to raise interest in it. It's this.
What?
I honestly don't know where to even begin. But I'll begin with the obvious thing. Look at these faces. What is that?
The Mummy looks like the lawyer who accidentally had the cat thing on Zoom and couldn't get it out.
Yes. And she's singing a Mariah Carey song or something. Well, okay, so they went back. Someone must have complained. I'm sure they got all kinds of letters. I certainly would have been writing letters if I saw that. It's like, oh my God, do you think this is going to get me there? So they went back and they redid it. They redid the mummy's face. And I don't know. I don't really see a big improvement here. It is different, but it's not good. I mean, for one thing, his head's got even bigger. Really looks like he's wearing a wastepaper basket. And then finally they did this. And this did fix part of the problem. Her mouth, her big open maw. But he still looks terrible.
His arm's really short on this one.
I look at this, and it's just each one is terrible in its own unique way. And I know they knew they had a problem because they kept trying to fix it, but it was unfixable. You had to go back to square one. I am fascinated by this poster because it is so terrible. The mummy's bad. Her big cake hole is just doesn't look like she's screaming. Who are these two guys? Who's Abbott and Costello here? What are they looking at? What are they there? Who is she? Who is I Dream of Jeannie in the lower? Here's a mummy choking some guy. I guess this is a tomb, a Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. It looks pretty scary. I don't think it's scary enough. Oh, I'll put a spider on it. I'll put the itsy bitsy spider there. That makes it scary.
Are you sure you didn't do this in AI?
I did. I swear to God, if you go on Google right now and do a search for Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, and they will give you variations of this dreadful poster that just has to be seen to be believed. So let's get back to the original, because this wasn't bad, except the one obvious thing. This is either a really small woman or that's a really big mummy. And that's what it was supposed to be. The original plan was it was a 20-foot tall mummy. Well, that's way better. Way better. Right? I mean, okay, maybe they should have renamed the title a little bit, but I'll take a 20-foot mummy. I've never seen that before. I don't know what it would look like, but I have a bad feeling. See, England is not really renowned for their giant monsters. I mean, they had Conga, and Conga was pretty stupid looking. I've got a bad feeling maybe that's where we would have gone. That it would have just... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really improve things the way I want. You might be saying, okay, sure, poster. But how'd the mummy end up looking? He ended up looking very sad. And I don't know. I think I feel in this second picture a sense of shame. Yeah. Like, I was supposed to be 20 feet tall. And you know, boy, Christopher Lee looked great as the mummy, but this guy's rocking a dad bod. And the thing with mummies is you got to start with someone who's really thin already, because it kind of bulks them up. You know, those parallel lines, they're very thickening. They're not flattering at all. So I don't know. I think he would have been looking just like this, only 20 feet tall. So I'm going to rate this one as dodged a bullet. Not too good. Hey, Paul, you like Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What's not to love? It's about this guy who's a vampire hunter, and he hunts vampires. But here's the thing. What we didn't know, because there's only one movie, but there's supposed to be a bunch of them, is that he was a time traveler. That's right. Captain Kronos is a time traveler. And so all the sequels...
Hence the name.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was going to... All the sequels could be set anywhere they wanted. At any time they wanted. Could be Captain Kronos in Roman times. Could be Captain Kronos in the Wild West. It was probably going to be Captain Kronos in like 1970s England, because that was going to be the cheapest option. But the point is, we were going to get lots of Captain Kronos. Unfortunately, nobody went to see Captain Kronos. This is when Hammer was throwing everything they could against the wall, looking for something to stick, and nothing stuck. And the one that really didn't stick was the one that they put pretty much all their eggs in this basket. Nessie. They were going to make a giant monster movie starring Britain's own Loch Ness Monster.
Yay.
And yeah, pretty cool. This was budgeted at $3 million, and it ballooned up to $7 million, which for Hammer was like a Marvel production. I mean, they did not spend $7 million on movies. So, and by this point, they were having trouble getting financing. They started looking internationally. They brought Toho on board, and they said, look, not only can you co-produce it with us, but you can do the special effects. And Toho was like, oh, we're really good at that. They started looking for directors. Brian Forbes, who did The Stepford Wives, was one. Michael Anderson, who did Logan's Run, but he also did Doc Savage and Orca, and they didn't come out too great. So, yeah. I mean, Orca's problems were not... Well, there's a lot of problems with Orca. What's it about? I'll tell you. It's got a very strong ecological theme. Nessie is driven from Loch Ness, that's not how you spell Loch Ness, Bill, by a toxic chemical spill that not only drives her from her, homeland, but also sends her to, I know, but also, check this out, it makes her grow, yay! So we have a giant Loch Ness Monster, not the 30 or 40 foot gentle beast of the Scotland Highlands that we have now. No, this one's a rip-roaring monster that's really pissed off and takes out like oil rigs and smashes oil ships and is just, taking it to the patriarchy. They had all kinds of cool designs. I got to be honest here. I love Nessie. I've only recently let go of the fact that it's never going to happen. There is no Loch Ness Monster. It breaks my heart. It really does. But even if there were, and even if she were really big, that's just not really that scary. She looks awkward. It's like a giant walrus coming up and sort of loping around and everything.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, Now, this is another one of those ones everyone is searching for little bits and pieces they could. The Japanese really kind of embrace this. They like the idea because they're big on Nessie. And so there's lots of pre-production sketches. And this was your traditional view of the monster at the time, that the multi-humps that people reported was part of the body. And we had the flippers that turned out, the head and neck. This, by the way, is certainly not what Nessie, if it existed, ever looked like. The head and neck stuff was just that one lousy photo and hardly ever. We found, that someone found a magazine from back then, from 1975, where they built some models. There were rumors that they had built the full-size thing. There's more. Again, looking kind of like a salamander. I just don't know. Anyway, so there were some problems. One of the problems was everyone else except the Japanese were not happy that the Japanese were doing the special effects. Because they kind of, again, when this is animated, it's one of the not so great shots from King Kong versus Godzilla. I like the Godzilla movies. I like the effects in the Godzilla movies. But they are a little cheesy sometimes. And this was a deadly serious production. This was, about the ecology and stuff. Rumor has it that the Japanese did build the monster, and this was shown in Princess from the Moon, that this is the Nessie model, but that is almost certainly not true. It was an unrelated thing. We don't think an actual model was ever built. And when this production fell apart, Hammer pretty much fell apart with it. This was just their big thing. This was the one that was going to put them back on the map. And instead, it just showed how far they'd fallen. They were not able to get the money together. So, if it had been made, I don't think it would have been very good. But I'm sorry that it went away, because it really did kill Hammer. Or did it? There was one last thing. They were going to do one last roll of the dice. They went to Famous Monsters of Filmland, and they put an ad in there, what will Hammer do next? And asked you, what is our next big thing? What do you, the fans, want to see? Here, ruin the collectability of your magazine by cutting out this thing and sending it to Hammer. Forey Ackerman will take this and put you on a list, and for the rest of your life, you will be receiving ads from his crap stuff. And to everyone's absolute shock, the number one thing that all the fans of the Warren magazines, where he put this ad, said to do was Warren Magazine's very own Vampirella.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thunk it? It's almost like it was designed to have this happen. Now, in fairness, it's not a bad idea. I liked Vampirella. I read Vampirella when I was a kid. Vampirella she's from the planet Draculon, where water is replaced with blood. So their rivers have blood in it, and that's what they drink. So, are they really vampires, or just, a different culture? She wears this incredible costume that, just is absolutely ridiculous. And she is part of she's part of an act with an aging magician that would have been played by Peter Cushing, who would have been perfect in the role. They were looking for a director. Who were they going to get to direct this masterpiece? And they looked immediately to Gordon Hessler, a man who clearly has spent way too much time in the sun without any even the thought of sunscreen, even the awareness that sunscreen existed, and has genuinely crazy eyes. I've got mixed feelings about Gordon Hessler. I really do, because he directed one of my all-time favorite movies, like top 10, Golden Voyage of Sinbad. But he also did Murders in the Rue Morgue, the Jason Robards version, which is almost incomprehensible. He said it was badly edited by the studio. I believe it. He did Scream and Scream Again, which makes absolutely no sense and has Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing, and barely has them ever together. He did Vincent Price in Cry of the Banshee, which is really, really cheap, but he was sort of a work for hire with that one. It just came in at the last minute. And he did the absolutely terrible Pray for Death with Sho Kosugi, and it's just not good. So I don't really have a handle on this guy. Oh, wait, I forgot. There's one other thing he did. Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. And if you can get these animated GIFs to work, you gotta, because they're the only way to convey just how terrible this film was. And I will go to my grave remembering I liked Kiss. Don't even ask me to explain. Kiss Destroyer is a pretty good album. All right, shut up. It's the only one I had. And my dad, of course, didn't like Kiss. He'd heard all kinds of things about Kiss. And I'm like, Dad, no, it's not kids in Satan's service. It's just cool, right? And then I heard, Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. They made a horror movie with Kiss, my heroes, directed by the guy who did The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Holy God, this is going to be great. So we made some Jiffy Pop popcorn, and I had the whole family sitting around, and we watched this movie. And you need to watch this movie too, so that you can get a sense of the absolute utter humiliation that I suffered. Because this movie is so bad, it becomes good, but then it keeps on going and becomes bad again. It doesn't do a 360, it does 480s and 720s, and it's just spinning wheelies in the parking lot of your soul. It is so terrible. It's awful. I don't even know where to begin on how bad it is. It's so bad. These guys cannot act at all. They can't even act as themselves. Peter Criss was so angry with the script. So I guess he was coked out one day, and they were doing a read through, and he hadn't remembered any of his lines, so he just made bird sounds. So the writers were like, I guess that's his shtick. So they rewrote the script so that he just goes like, caw. And then he got mad because he didn't have any lines. He also got mad that his stuntman is obviously African-American, while he, conversely, is not. The least of his problems, really. Boy, is this movie bad. Oh, it's so bad. You've got to watch it. It's so terrible. I slunk away in shame, in absolute shame, and said, I got to find better music. And then I discovered New Wave. So, in a way, it had a happy ending. They also thought about having... what movie were we talking about? Oh, Vampirella. Yeah, they also thought about having John Hughes, who did Legend of Hell House. Huh? And Twins of Evil. Okay. Escape to Witch Mountain, Watcher in the Woods, and Howling 4, and, Howling 4. Well, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry was fine. I mean, look, these aren't terrible, except for Howling 4. Howling 4 is really, really bad. It's not Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park bad, but okay. So I don't know about that. They needed to find Vampirella. Listen, the movie's name is Vampirella. It's going to rise or fall on who you got to play Vampirella. And boy, they were casting a wide net. Now, I don't know if any of these women actually got asked to be in Vampirella. I got a feeling Julie Newmar, who was at one time possibly the most ravishing creature ever to exist on the earth. But I have a feeling by this time she was maybe a little too old for the role. But then again, I don't know, because I saw some pictures of her in later years, and damn, she was fine looking. So, who knows? Whatever. But Paula Prentice? Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. Susan St. James? A favorite. Charlotte Rampling doesn't look at all like Vampirella, but I've always been completely inexplicably in love with her, so I could forgive that. Valerie Leone, I think, was one of the actresses. I think she was one of the Volnavias. Or maybe she was the mummy from Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. Anyway, she's quite fetching. But look, forgot. Carolyn Monroe. Carolyn Monroe, winner, chicken dinner. But Carolyn Monroe said there was way too much nudity in the film. And I can attest to the fact that she does not do nudity in her films, because I've watched them all, and there wasn't a damn bit of nudity in any of them. So they went with Barbara Lee. And I just want to say a personal thing here. I was at the Famous Monsters of Filmland convention in either 76 or 77. And Peter Cushing was there. Ingrid Pitt was there. The guy who was the head of Hammer was there. And they announced that they were going to do Vampirella, and they had a special thing for all of us. And this woman comes out with a full-length cape covering herself, and she whips it back, and there she was in all her glory. Wow. And you never saw an entire audience of hormonal teenagers freak out like you just couldn't believe. The place just went nuts, and you could just see the dollar signs dancing in the eyes of Michael Carrera, who's the head of Hammer, that yes, this is it. We finally got it right. These people, they're going to tell all their friends. She seemed like a really nice person. She signed a multi-film contract, and so here's the thing. I've read the script. Vampy has temporary amnesia. She becomes part of a nightclub act with a drunken magician named Pendragon. Peter Cushing would have been the best part of the movie, clearly. Here's where it falls apart. She meets up with members of a secret agent organization called SODS. Space Operatives for Defense and Security. SODS is like, that's a funny word in England. To foil an alien invasion of the Earth by the same race of creatures that destroyed her home planet. Stuff happens. It's kind of like the Avengers, not the Marvel comic Avengers, the British Avengers, but kind of like later Avengers after Emma Peel and everything, when it kind of got a little silly. And the ending is just inexplicable. They succeed in wiping off the alien invasion, and they're walking along the beach. Horse and buggy pulls up. A hunchback coachman offers them a ride, and inside the carriage as they ride off, we realize that there's a coffin that says Dracula. And that's the big ending. At no point in this movie has it ever been established that Dracula exists or that he has anything to do with Vampirella. It goes over like a wet fart. It's just nothing. It's just dumb. I guess we're supposed to feel happy that there was going to be a Dracula versus Vampirella movie. But of course there wasn't, because there wasn't a Vampirella movie. Now, you can get Carolyn Monroe, who maybe regrets this whole thing, reading the script. And they've done some things where they performed this. And they did make a Vampirella movie. This is a fan poster of what it might have been like, where they had Peter Cushing actually playing the father of her love interest, who would have been played by Ralph Bates, and presumably Pendragon would have been Vincent Price. I'm okay with this casting. I have no idea who this woman is. Yeah. Okay, what do I give this? I really think this would have been a bad movie. The script was just not that great. But it would have been fun. Yeah, I've got so much affection just for for being there and being part of that crowd when we really thought it was going to happen. I'll give it 3.5 stars. That's probably absolutely idiotic, but I'll do it. Let's get sad. Willis O'Brien, the man who made King Kong. After Mighty Joe Young, he could not get arrested in Hollywood. His technique took too long. He had lots of cool ideas, and he kept pitching them. To the day he died, he was pitching projects. And he had one idea of a giant Frankenstein versus Kong, to bring back Kong and have him fight a giant Frankenstein. So, and he did all these sketches, lots and lots of sketches of varying quality. And the idea was that Kong apparently is still alive. He was going to be captured. It's a smaller Kong than we're used to seeing, more close to the original version. And they also find the Frankenstein monster. Look, it wasn't the greatest plot. They put on some shows, looking really bored, I might add. Like, and audiences would come and watch them. Because audiences, of course, would come and watch them. Because what could possibly happen when you have giant monsters on display from the guy who brought you King Kong? And they would do stuff like... hey, yeah, I guess giant monsters aren't really bringing the crowd. How about we do a tightrope act, too? Listen, if they found a dinosaur and I could go to a zoo and he's just sitting in his cage, like the crocodiles picking his ass and just sleeping the whole time, I'm there. There is no amount of money you could charge that I would not pony up. So I don't know where they need to have trapeze artists. At any rate, as things often do, they escape and get into a big fight and end up fighting at the Golden Gate Bridge. They fall to their deaths. Okay, so here's the sad part. He pitched this to a bunch of people, and one guy said, I love this. I'm going to go raise money. Get ready to do this. And Willis is like, finally, yay, finally. And then years later, hadn't heard anything for a while. Guy wouldn't return his phone calls. He finally hears what this guy's done. He took it to Japan and sold it to the Japanese. He took the script and made King Kong versus Godzilla. Willis O'Brien got no credit. Obviously, he didn't get any money. Wow, don't even joke about it. Come on, he didn't get a dime. But that wasn't his best idea. His best idea was War Eagles. Listen to the premise. 1939, so this is going to be, after the triumphs of King Kong. Oh, God, this just makes me tear up. An American pilot crash lands in an Arctic valley hidden by the mountains and warmed by volcanic activity. A beautiful native woman, Naru, introduces him to her tribe, the descendants of Vikings who tame and ride upon giant eagles. Slim, the American pilot, is able to capture and master his own eagle, which impresses the Vikings, and they adopt Slim into their tribe. Yeah, it's Avatar. Now a full-fledged member, Slim helps the tribe to destroy a herd of Allosaurus that have terrorized the tribe for centuries. Whoa, stop the presses. You're telling me there are giant eagles, Vikings, and if that weren't enough, and it really is, there's dinosaurs? Oh, this can't get any better. Watch as it suddenly gets better. A fleet of Nazi Zeppelins is attacking New York City with an electromagnetic pulse weapon that has disabled all electricity, including military plane engines. Oh, damn, if only there was another thing we had that could fly. There is. Slim leads an army of eagle riders for a dogfight between the warbirds and their masters against the Nazi Zeppelins over Manhattan. Holy crap. Holy crap. How close did this movie get to being made? Close enough that not only do we have all these beautiful behind-the-scenes shots, but people have discovered they built the models. They built the dioramas.
Oh, wow.
It was going to be filmed in Technicolor. They found, stop motion. They have not found any stop-motion animated actual scenes that were animated. Those are probably completely disintegrated in time. But we keep finding more and more behind-the-scenes stuff. Oh, my God. We also, you can even buy, for sale, they had some of the Warbirds armatures for sale. Wow. Bits and pieces of this magnificent film. They eventually, oh God, it just breaks your heart. It just breaks your absolute heart. Here, look at this. Look, some Technicolor behind the scenes shots. Oh man. I mean, really, that's got to be the best of all of them. This would have been... Now, what stopped it from happening? Actual Nazis. Bastards. World War II broke out, and all the producers immediately signed up to go actually fight real Nazis instead of, And then by the time the war was over, yeah. Oh, so pure balls. They were going to have the Germans attacking us before the Germans actually attacked us.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty good. Good timing, but not good enough. And that brings up one more Hammer production. Listen, Zeppelins are cool. Zeppelins are the best. I mean, who doesn't love Zeppelins, right? Mm-hmm. Any movie that has Zeppelin...
Probably everyone who was on the Hindenburg.
Yeah, they're not saying much. Any movie with a Zeppelin is better than that movie would have been if it didn't have a Zeppelin. Like the movie Zeppelin. It would have made no sense. And almost as cool as Zeppelins is pterodactyls. Pterodactyls are awesome. They're like everyone's favorites. So what if we combine the two? What would you call it, Paul?
Either Zeppelins versus pterodactyls or pterodactyls versus Zeppelins?
I'm going to go with the first one. Let's go in alphabetical order. Zeppelins versus pterodactyls. This is a Hammer film. This is the kind of poster that they would produce to try to get people interested. Interested? I'm crying right now that this did not get made. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's not one of those films that's like, gosh, Martha, I wonder what this one's about. It's about Zeppelins versus pterodactyls, you wet brain. Look, it's got... Yeah, it's set obviously in around World War I, where, that kind of thing, where we have those airplanes that inexplicably could fire bullets through their propellers. I've never figured out how that worked. But at any rate, they're shooting down pterodactyls. Yeah, so this movie did not get made, needless to say. But if you search for Zeppelins versus pterodactyls, apparently next to cats, this is one of the most popular AI prompts out there. They even sell bumper stickers. I want to put this on my car. 2 people in the nation would understand. But that's okay. That's just, So this is another one where you can actually listen to the stage reading because they got the script. I have never read the script. I just, in my mind, this is a perfect movie, so I don't want to read the script and discover maybe it wasn't as perfect as I imagine it. But in my imaginations, this is the greatest movie ever made. Absolutely. I mean, even before they were talking about Zeppelins versus pterodactyls, people were like coming up with ideas of how cool that would be because, yeah. So what's this? What do I rate this one? This one gets all the ice cream cones. That's what it gets. Every single ice cream cone ever made. Heartbreaking. I want to end, and believe it or not, we have actually come to the end. Oh, wow, it only took almost 3 hours. Yeah, this was a real good plan, Bill. This was really going to fit into a 60-minute zone. But when it came time to edit, it's like, I can't let that one go. I can't let that one go. I've got to talk about that damn Curse of the Mummy's Tomb for 15 minutes. Yeah, so I just, whatever. I want to end on a happy note that sometimes the gods smile on us. And the Primevals was David Allen's dream project. A movie about a race of lizard aliens that control Yetis. And just a great premise. And he worked on it off and on for his entire, for 20 years or something. And then unfortunately passed away at a very young age. He was only 55 and had a lot of years ahead of him, but got cancer, passed away, leaving behind lots and lots of cool footage. And it's been kind of a dream project for people to see it finished. And his friends, of which he had many, he was very well loved. And the folks, Charles Band, the band people, Albert Band or whatever, Charles Band, I guess, they got together and they have finished it. And The Primevals was just premiered at Fantasia.
Oh wow!
It
cool.
is, yes, it is very much an old school.
Oh.
Yeah, and now is it good? Well, no, it's not that good. I mean, these are very old-fashioned kind of movies. They're of their time. But by God, I think it's a great thing. it's great that it was finished and it's out there, and hopefully maybe he's somewhere smiling down on us looking at this. I just, to me, whether the movie is good or not, the fact that it was finished is good. And it speaks so well of the people who saw this through, you know, a labor of love that actually got finished, as opposed to the horrible story that is, say, The Thief and the Cobbler, which we won't get into because we don't want to end on a bad note. So I wanted to thank my audience for coming here. Hey, you know, you're probably thinking at this point, damn, this guy's entertaining. I wish I'd written down the name of his book. Well, my friends, I have smiled on you. And there you go, right there. Rom, ask for it by name. Don't go to a bookstore. They don't know anything. But go on Amazon, and there it is. And I thank you very much for your indulgence.